Welcome to Alaska Earthquake Science Facts. I'm Carl Tape. There were two types of devastating tsunamis generated by the 1964 magnitude 9.2 Alaska earthquake. The first was a tectonic tsunami that propagated across the Pacific Ocean. The second were local tsunamis caused by shaking-induced submarine landslides within glacially carved fjords. This talk is in three parts, shown in the outline here, part A, B, and C. And this video will cover part A. What is a tsunami? Deaths from earthquakes and tsunamis, and the first type of tsunami, tectonic tsunamis, featuring the Sumatra 2004 earthquake. So from an online search, tsunami, a long high sea wave caused by an earthquake, submarine landslide, or other disturbance. So if we look at the high sea wave caused by an earthquake, looking back to the fact number 8, 1946, the tsunami wave arriving in Hilo, Hawaii, having traveled from the Aleutian Islands, where it originated from a magnitude 8.6 earthquake. That would be an example of a high sea wave caused by an earthquake. The wave height reached 26 feet in Hilo Harbor. We're going to revisit this event in a little more detail here. This shows a photo taken of the tsunami coming in Hilo Harbor with a just enormous wave coming in. You can see this palm trees for scale. Paper published in 1947 included this map showing the origin of the tsunami. Here we have the Hawaiian Islands, and it explains a bit about the tsunami that struck, number of people killed. It says the wave attack on Hawaiian shores was far from uniform. The height and violence of the waves at adjacent points varied greatly, and not always in the manner which would have been expected from superficial inspection and a study of the existing literature on tsunamis. What they did was they documented how different the wave was entering various harbors in Hawaii. So first, at this scale, we zoom into Hawaii. We can see the authors have shown the bathymetry contours in 1,000 feet. When you look in this way, it's not just islands. They're islands on deep ocean floor, and you have to imagine these deep ocean waves coming in from the north and impacting these various islands. So we'll now zoom into Hawaii. This is showing a figure heights in feet above lower low water reached by the water during the tsunami of April 1st. And it's remarkable when you look at these numbers: 28, 15, 30, 38, 23, 37. Here's Hilo Harbor right here, which we're going to zoom on next, but you can just see this overall very different numbers. As you might expect, the numbers 6, 9, 7, 8. On the backside of the island, the tsunami waves are much lower than coming in from the north. And we can see this little notch right here. We'll now zoom into Hilo. So here's Hilo Bay, showing the same heights reached by the water in feet, the area of flooding, and the portion of the breakwater shown here, destroyed during the tsunami of April 1st, 1946. And here we see 32 feet, 23 feet, 25 feet, 26 feet here, the number that's quoted for the wave height in the harbor. You also see this area flooded by the tsunami in this region shown here. And this is, blocks of the shorefront of the town of Hilo. So incredible variability, but notably just a staggering wave height coming in despite having this breakwater, this barrier here. So from this paper, 1947, they state the definition of a tsunami. The name tsunami is applied to a long period gravity wave in the ocean caused by a sudden large displacement of the sea bottom or shores. They follow that with a tsunami is accompanied by a severe earthquake, but this earthquake does not cause the tsunami. Rather, both are caused by the same sudden crustal displacement. So the first part is correct. The second part is not. So they infer that the seafloor displacement generates both the earthquake and the tsunami. We know that is not the case. The correct part is that the earthquake generates the seafloor displacement, and that displacement causes the tsunami. Lift up the seafloor, move all that water, and it's going to propagate outward and even across the ocean. And that's what happened in this case in Alaska to generate the wave that traveled all the way across the ocean. So here's some fundamentals. Tectonic tsunamis are caused by earthquakes, which shift the seafloor permanently, and this displaces ocean water. So we have tectonic tsunamis. Seismic waves are much faster than tsunami waves, so shaking is felt first, followed by the arrival of tsunami waves if you're close to the earthquake. If you're far from the earthquake, you won't feel any shaking at all. If you're in Hilo, you would not have felt shaking from the Aleutian earthquake. Tsunami waves in the open ocean are about 800 kilometers per hour, roughly the speed of a jet plane. Seismic waves travel 4 kilometers per second, which is about 14,000 kilometers per hour, 18 times faster than tsunami waves. So the information from the earthquake is coming from the seismic waves first, tsunami waves second. When tsunami waves approach shallow water and coastal regions, they slow down, get larger, and they run up onto the shore. This wave goes up, and this is called the tsunami run-up. It's a sort of elevation that the tsunami waves reach. For our purposes, local tsunamis are caused by landslides initiated from earthquake shaking. In 1964, the tsunami-generating landslides were underwater in the fjords of Alaska. The 1958 Lituya Bay tsunami was generated by a landslide above sea level. Local tsunami waves do not propagate across the ocean. Tectonic tsunami waves do. So we'll start with a plot breakdown of deaths from the 1964 magnitude 9.2 Alaska earthquake. First of all, there weren't a lot of deaths. Fortunately, there weren't a lot of people living in Alaska, and those who were living there were not in widely hazardous situations. So what we have is deaths within Alaska due to the earthquake shaking directly, the tectonic tsunami, and the local tsunamis. So it's a useful way to recognize there are different ways to die in earthquakes, and you can be close and you can be far as well. The tsunamis that propagate far from the source can cause deaths far away. So we have within Alaska deaths from earthquake shaking, the tectonic tsunami, the one of the static seafloor lifting up, and the local tsunamis, which we'll see later, caused by submarine landslides in the fjords of Alaska. And outside of Alaska, all the deaths were due to the tectonic tsunami waves hitting Oregon and California. So we can see this breakdown here. We now look toward deaths from the 2004, same magnitude, 9.2 Sumatra Andaman earthquake. And we have the same breakdown. There were no local tsunamis causing any deaths, as far as we know. And among the deaths within Indonesia, 167,000 were caused by the tectonic tsunami, and about 1,000 were caused by the earthquake shaking. So this earthquake, the devastating effects were due to the tsunami. Outside of Indonesia, 60,000 people died from the tsunami waves, the same ones that hit Indonesia, propagated outward, places like Sri Lanka. And so it's a staggering loss of life from this event. All told, 228,000 people died. So this is the one we'll focus on here as the dominant source of death was the tectonic tsunami waves in the near field region hitting Indonesia, in particular Banda Aceh province. And while that number is staggering in terms of loss of life in a single event, I think the photo is also, gut-wrenching to see. This is just a picture of, the military trying to get control of all the body and death. Small subset of 167,000 people in Indonesia who were killed by the tectonic tsunami. And these are body bags. So First type of tsunami, tectonic tsunami, caused by uplift of the seafloor near the trench. We'll focus on here, 2004 Indonesia, Sumatra, Andaman. This is going to be a movie showing the displacement of the seafloor as a result of the 2004 Sumatra Andaman earthquake. The seafloor goes up near the trench, shown in red here, and it drops down further from the trench in blue. And this takes about 10 minutes. So we're going to watch a movie of how this earthquake ruptured from the south to the north and how this evolved. So we'll see it we'll watch it again, but we can see the imprint is that overall, after 10 minutes or so, things have gone up near the trench and dropped down. And this displacement of the seafloor is what generates the tsunami. This is going to move water up in some places, drop it down in others, and start these waves. So there it is propagating upward, but it's really the final imprint that matters. That's the static deformation dropping down, lifting up that causes the tsunami. One more time. This shows the contours of tsunami wave propagation in hours after the 2004 earthquake origin time. So the earthquake originated near these stars propagating from south to north. And this shows in red, these are in hours. So 5 hours, 4, 3, 2, 1. It was about 20 minutes to Banda Aceh following the shaking right here. In Sumatra, there's about 2 hours to Sri Lanka here. About 5 hours to Australia, shown here, about 7 hours to Madagascar. So we get an idea of how long it takes tsunami waves to propagate, hours long, which should make you think, if possible, we need to give people some warning about when these waves are coming, since the earthquake shaking is known much faster. Earthquake shaking from this event was felt thousands of kilometers from the source region. In fact, it was so strong. So this shows the felt reports compiled from people who experienced the earthquake and the shaking. And this shows in red, violent, severe, shaking intensity, 10, 9, 8. You can see in the region of the earthquake, things are very high along these islands. But it was also felt far away. So in blue, weak to light shaking was actually felt out in these regions, thousands, in some cases, over 1,000 kilometers away, this was felt. Similarly here, Thailand, Singapore, you see low levels of shaking. But this is a reminder that the shaking is felt, but not the cause of so much destruction and loss of life. In this particular event, it was the tsunami that was responsible for so much loss of life. But just to reiterate, it was widely felt, the shaking was widely felt, and strongest, of course, near where the earthquake ruptured. Here's a timeline for Banda Aceh where we'll focus. And this is from a really nice report summarizing the effects of tsunamis being close to the source. December 26, 2004, shaking starts at 7:59 local time, minute 0. And at about 20 minutes in, a clock stopped. So that means the clock was damaged enough that it stopped in this particular spot. That gives us 20 minutes from the time of shaking to the time that the tsunami waves caused damage in this particular area. Other clocks stopped at 45 to 50 minutes in. And so you have this sort of timeline in the near field, but that gives us this number of about from shaking to tsunami damage in this area was 20 minutes. And recall that seismic waves are faster than tsunami waves. So the earthquake starts shaking at minute 0 here, lasts several minutes. And when you think that's done, in comes a tsunami wave or series of waves many minutes later. This shows from Wikipedia the breakdown of deaths from this event, showing the total 228,000 people died, 167,000 in Indonesia, and then another 60,000 or so from outside of Indonesia. Just a staggering toll. This is underestimated. The numbers I'm going with are estimated rather than confirmed. So here's an image from far away, Thailand. This is not Banda Aceh, but just to emphasize what this wave looked like coming in far away, places where they would have felt very light shaking. And then hours later comes in the waves. So this shows the waves and really unsuspecting people at this point. This is a series of images from Banda Aceh where the first wave arrives in minutes. So we saw 20 minutes after the shaking, and there's all kinds of destruction. And keeping in mind that Indonesia, the loss of life, 167,000 people from this tsunami, just staggering, cannot be captured in a few images. But this documents some of the scenes and comes to grips with particular timing of wave arrivals in these places, which really helps inform things like how to evacuate in the future from these kinds of events. So next I'll show a couple photos from the same location, one taken in 2005 after the tsunami devastation in Banda Aceh. The other was from a similar view, same location, photographed in 2014, showing the new houses and rebuilt community. The changes are so dramatic that it's difficult to even link these two photos, even with the obvious kind of segmented waterway that you'll see to link them. So here's the destruction after the tsunami, Banda Aceh. I've highlighted a few structures that are standing, a little pond here, house here, and you can see this kind of segmented waterway. And here are those four. Here's the pond. This is a slightly different view, but it's enough that you can link up some of these homes. Everything else has been rebuilt. So people came in, and within 10 years, all kinds of homes have sprung up here. So just going back, especially out in here, just total devastation in these regions. Few places left standing. You can see the waves came in and just leveled everything. But here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it does get you thinking about, is this a place where homes should be rebuilt, or is this a place where how if you're going to rebuild, should things be done differently? And looking at Banda Aceh, here's a very involved map, but we want to try to understand the details. At the bottom, we can see this is this is the coastal view with an overlay of information of data that was collected. We can see the scale on the bottom, 5 kilometers. So this is 1 kilometer. This shows the tsunami limit, the run-up of the wave. How far did it get? And what you want to notice is this is 5 kilometers. So 5 kilometers from the shoreline, these waves came in. And what you can see is that the colored dots are shown as the flow depth. So here's red dots are 10 kilometers, yellow dots 5 to 10. And so you really have to imagine, when you look at this scale, here's a person and a house for scale. Just imagine the horror of seeing a wave coming in at 10 meters height, a wave coming in above the height of the house. And this sort of starts to see why within a densely populated area, how over 100,000 people could die under these tsunami waves. So this shows, if we look at the limit, as you would expect, the wave heights are smaller near this limit. They would go down to 0 at the limit. These white dots are showing less than 2 meters, the blue dots 2 to 5 meters, and the yellow dots 5 to 10 meters. So as you get a little bit, the wave heights are the highest recorded wave heights of 10 to 15 meters, 14 meters here are closest to the shore. And as this water comes in to land, it spreads out, slows down, and in this case, eventually diminishes. But it's just a staggering volume of water coming in when you look at this picture and think about a wave front with so much water behind it, just carrying so much debris. So this is the end of part A, and you can check out the next video in the playlist to continue on to part B. All the credits and notes for this section, as well as the others, are at the end of part C.